The Kings lose a tough one to the Bucks, 114-108, one where they led for so much of this game, one where they played a really good game, at least for 36 minutes, and then it all came crashing down really in the first 6 minutes of the fourth quarter. I think that's where they really lost this game. The first 6 minutes of the fourth quarter, where Giannis is on the bench and they lost the lead. They lost the lead in that time when they needed to have extended it to at least a few possession lead by the time Giannis was coming back in. Because Giannis, I mean, there's just not much you can do about him. They were able to keep him in check for the first half, and then he went off in the third quarter. I thought they did a good job at trying to guard him, but he's just such a massive matchup problem for the Kings. There's just not much you can do about it. And they worked so hard for 3 quarters of this game, despite Giannis scoring 22 points in the third quarter. They worked so hard to be able to take a lead into the fourth quarter. And so it's so disappointing to then see all that work gone because you couldn't defend Kevin Porter Jr. led Bucks team at the start of the fourth quarter. The Kings were without Sabonis, of course, again, but also without Malik Monk due to an illness. And so without Malik Monk, that's a lot of offense that you're missing, and the Kings didn't shoot well at all from three. If they shot better from three in this game and made some more open shots, they definitely would have had a much better chance at winning this game. But it continued the pattern of when you're starting Keon Ellis, you have much better starts defensively. And despite the loss, the team just looks better when you have Keon Ellis in the starting lineup and when you're only starting two of LaVine, DeRozan, Malik Monk in one game. And Keon Ellis, I mean, I think he had maybe the best offensive game of his entire career. He's had games where he's shot the ball incredibly well and hasn't missed from three and scored more points than he scored in this one. But I think it's the diversity in the way that he scored offensively and him finding teammates that was super impressive. And then he still wasn't closing the game, which was just so confusing. He did play 37 minutes, but he wasn't in the game down the stretch. And I get we had LaRavia in there for the size defensively to guard Giannis, but it still just felt so weird, especially when we were just struggling to make a shot in the fourth quarter. And so I get there was the thought of matchups with Giannis and wanting to go bigger at the wing position. But at the same time, in the back of my head, all I'm thinking is if Keon can't end a game when he is having, like I said, one of the best offensive games of his entire career, it's like, when is he going to end games? What does this guy have to do to actually get a starting spot on this team? It just feels like he has to do so much more than anyone else to get the minutes that he deserves. And like I said, he played 37 minutes. So obviously he had the minutes, but it's just not being in there at the most important time of the game was odd to me. But the thing that sucks about this game is that they did play so well and you can take so many positives away. But then also last game, we just lost to the Bulls. And so when you lose to the Bulls, a game that you shouldn't have lost, a game where you didn't play any defense, and then you come into this one and the defense is so much better, and it felt like the defensive effort was something that you could be proud of, again, maybe outside of the first 6 minutes of the fourth quarter. And if you had won that game against the Bulls, then maybe you can come out of this game and say, well, that sucks, but it happens. But at this point in the season, now you're back to 500. The Suns are chasing you down. The Mavericks are chasing you down. And Anthony Davis might be back soon. Like, you can't afford these types of losses if you're also going to lose to the Bulls. You can afford some losses against good teams like the Bucks, but not if you're also going to lose to the Bulls. The first quarter was great for the Kings. The Bucks couldn't make shots, even inside. They were getting some looks inside. Early on, they were dominating the paint. The Kings were trying to front Giannis, and the Bucks had some success at throwing over to him still. They were also getting on the offensive glass, but they just weren't making shots. They were rebounding those misses, but they weren't making them. They weren't hitting from deep at all. I don't think they made a three in the first quarter. And so I felt like the Kings were getting a little bit lucky early on, and especially like Brook Lopez missing. That's what you want to see, because if we want to be able to play Jonas Valanciunas, you can't have Brook Lopez hitting from deep. But also, the officials were just letting a lot of contact go on both ends. And so early on, I was like, hey, if it's going to go both ways and you're just not going to call a lot of contact, that's probably going to benefit us, because Giannis is going to get inside, and we don't want to just give him a parade to the free throw line. So if you're not going to really be calling this game super tightly, that's going to benefit us. I think the offense looked like it was in a flow early just because Valanciunas was knocking down his mid-rangers. When you have that type of release valve where you can pick and pop with Valanciunas when the Bucks try to take away like Zach LaVine going to the rim or anybody else, that's easy offense. And I did like the Kings' aggressiveness. Valanciunas was going at Brook Lopez. LaVine was attacking in transition, put back his own miss. Keegan was attacking in early offense, getting an and one, and he also just looked really confident off the dribble, going to his step back. And then after a little bit of a shaky beginning defensively for the Kings, they settled in, and Keegan did a great job on Giannis, forcing him to start 2 for 8 from the field and just not really get that many good looks. Battling on the boards, like I said, Brook Lopez was missing from 3. Then Jake LaRavia comes in. He gets put on Giannis. He's doing a good job of just battling. And the Kings were just being physical inside. And so the Kings were able to get out to a 22-11 lead early on because they were battling inside. Also, with the bench unit coming in, we had Zach LaVine leading the first bench unit, and he was a little loose with the ball, had 3 early turnovers. But I think overall that unit did a good job of attacking early on, trying to attack the rim before the Bucks defense got set. And I think it's the especially important thing about that lineup, where Zach LaVine had to be the guy offensively, was that Keegan Murray was also being aggressive offensively. So him being able to take some of that load from Zach LaVine was really important. You had Valanciunas finding LaVine on a really nice back cut out of a timeout. But then towards the end of the quarter, the Kings went super cold. They were cold for a lot of this game. They were not making their shots from outside. And you have to think, if you just make a few more shots from deep that were pretty open, maybe you win this game. But the thing the Kings were doing really well was getting the offensive rebounds off those misses, especially Trey Lyles, who had 5 total rebounds, all of them being offensive rebounds. Keon also was super active on the offensive glass. He had 3 offensive rebounds, set what I believe is a career high in total rebounds with 9. The one thing that kind of went against the Kings late in the first quarter was the transition defense. I don't think the Kings did a good job of picking up early in transition and not letting the Bucks get downhill. Obviously, that especially applies to Giannis, but with Giannis, sometimes there's not anything you can do. So I was more worried about other guys, not letting other guys get downhill, because that was pretty much the main focus of this game for me. Is yes, Giannis is going to go off, and if you have to double him, then other guys are going to get open shots. But when Giannis isn't the one creating something, you have to be able to defend that. You have to be able to defend when Kevin Porter Jr. is pushing in transition, when Kyle Kuzma is pushing in transition, or when these guys are just going one-on-one. And for most of the game, the Kings did that well. There were just a few times in transition where they didn't really pick up. I know Devin Carter had a moment where he just didn't realize he was taking Kevin Porter Jr. early on, let him too deep into the paint. To start the third quarter, I really liked the activity from the guys off the bench, and that just, at this point, I'm saying that every single game, which is great. But the guys that I was super impressed with on the offensive end, Jake LaRavia, Keon Ellis, and Keegan Murray. And those are 3 guys that I've talked about a lot as being 3 of the most important players on this team because of the way that they can play on both sides of the ball. And I thought there was a really big stretch of the second quarter. Most of the quarter was about the 3-and-D players for both teams being able to be more than 3-and-D players, and really offensively being able to be more than just offensive players. I mean, even in the first quarter, Keegan going to his step backs and things like that. But in the second quarter, Jake LaRavia was constantly moving offensively, coming around a dribble handoff, and then getting all the way downhill to the rim. And so in the modern NBA, everyone has to be able to do more offensively. Your 3-and-D guys have to be more than just 3-point shooters. They have to be able to attack closeouts and not be one-dimensional. They have to be able to make the right passes, or else it's just too easy for defenses to defend that. And so Jake LaRavia and Keon Ellis both had amazing second quarters, moving without the basketball, attacking the rim, and either finishing or finding passes out to other shooters. The ball movement was great. The Kings ended up scoring 36 points in that third quarter. The Bucks were doing similar things, like Taurean Prince was the guy on the Bucks who was doing the exact same thing. He was knocking down his threes, but he was also attacking the rim. He started out this game getting into the mid-range and hitting a pretty tough mid-range shot. So I feel like those four guys, Prince, Keegan, Keon, and Laravia, all kind of outlined what a 3-and-D player needs to be able to do. They need to be more than just three-point shooters. But Laravia especially was just moving different. He looked quicker than normal. He looked like he was getting low to the ground. Maybe it's because he was out there with Giannis and Brook Lopez, who were just towering over him, but he looked shifty and quick, and he was going to reverse layups and things like that. I think at one point he even went to like the Rondo fake behind the back pass, and he didn't end up finishing that layup, but that was insane. So you had him doing that. You had Valanciunas actually throwing a behind the back pass. That didn't work out either. But there's a lot of crazy stuff happening. Keon Ellis going to a Euro step, just guys who you don't really expect making these wild plays offensively. I do think that the Bucks were just scoring too easily in transition to start the second quarter. There was also a weird moment where Brook Lopez wedged a ball in the rim, a wedgie. I think maybe it got blocked, and then the refs didn't call it dead. Like, they didn't see it was a wedgie, so it's not officially a wedgie. No Dunks does not get to count that, I don't think, as an official wedgie, which is super disappointing. I actually kind of want to go back now because I think Keegan is one of the only players that has forced two wedgies on the season. It might have been him that got something on that. That could have been his third wedgie of the season. I got to go back and look. And these are the important things, right? The game doesn't matter. We need the wedgie to count. But that second quarter was so interesting because neither team was making all that many three-point shots. Brook Lopez did start to heat up. He hit a couple, but Keon started to hit from deep. But for the most part, it was really guys attacking closeouts, drawing fouls, getting to the line. Keon Ellis got to the line. There were a couple of nice defense to offense plays. DeMar got a steal, pushed it up for a Keon dunk. Then Keon had a great contest on a corner three by Derry Bird. That's AJ Green, if you don't know. And then off the miss, got the rebound, pushed it in transition, passed it to Levine on the wing. Levine drives, scores the and one. The Kings ended the quarter really well because they didn't play the best defense the entire quarter. I thought it was solid, but there were just moments where the game got going pretty fast and the Bucks were scoring. But really it was when Giannis was in the game in that first half where the Kings were playing better. I think because as long as Giannis wasn't getting out in transition, the game really slowed down for the Bucks and they didn't really know how to play offensively. The Kings were fronting Giannis, doing a really good job of not letting him get the ball, not get involved in the offense. And then from there, the Bucks just weren't really making shots. They didn't have guys making plays. There were some really good defensive possessions, like Keon got switched onto Giannis. Levine is there for the double team immediately, and they forced it out of his hands just with super active defense. Force a three-point shot that I think Lyles contested, and then Keegan just rips the rebound away from somebody on the Bucks. I don't know who it was, but he just ripped that thing away. It was such a good rebound. And then there were just some good offensive plays. Keon drew a three-point shooting foul at the end of a shot clock. That was just a dumb foul by Gary Trent Jr. But DeMar started to get to work. Keon had a nice drive-in dish to Lyles inside for a dunk. Keegan fouled Giannis on a fadeaway jumper. That's not good. But what was great about it is Giannis misses both free throws and everyone gets free pizza. So the vibes were super high. Free pizza for everyone. Great run to end the half, up 12. Laravia got a steal to end off the half. And so I just really loved the lineup with Keon, Keegan, Laravia, all in the game, all making plays defensively and offensively. And it was an amazing half from Keon. 18 points, 6 rebounds, 2 of those were offensive, 4 assists. I feel like he's kind of been struggling, or he had been in the past few games. He'd been getting into foul trouble. He just hadn't been playing all that well, been missing some shots. For him to get the start because Malik Monk was out with an illness. Laravia also had an illness a little earlier, so it seems like it's going around. But Keon steps in and has a huge game. He had 18 at the half, only ended up with 20. Maybe a couple reasons for that. There were times he could have been more aggressive. Also, maybe the Bucks keying in a little bit more on him to realize that he is actually an offensive threat. But then also maybe the ball just not moving as well in the second half. The third quarter was the Giannis quarter. In the first half, the Kings played better when Giannis was on the court than when he was off the court. In the second half, that flipped, or it didn't flip. And that's kind of the problem. If it flipped, the Kings would have actually been okay. The problem is Milwaukee just got better in the Giannis minutes, but then also still won the non-Giannis minutes. And I couldn't be mad at the defense in the third quarter. Giannis was just doing unthinkable things to guys. Crazy spin moves, knocking down the mid-range jumper. I mean, the Kings were trying everything. Like, sometimes you just gotta applaud a guy. Giannis is just crazy, and the Kings don't have a good matchup for him. I mean, I think Keegan did a valiant job. Lyles did as well, especially coming over to help. And I think everyone tried to key in on him, but man, when he's just knocking down his mid-ranger too, it's just impossible. He got going in transition a little bit early on. That's maybe where you could say, the Kings shouldn't have allowed him in transition, but it's like, you can't take away transition the entire game. Valanciunas started the third quarter well, a couple of buckets. He also gave up some buckets on the other end defensively. One thing I will say about what the Kings were doing defensively, like I said, Valanciunas cannot go out and guard Brook Lopez. So they were having other guys come up and contest the Brook Lopez shots while Valanciunas was still sitting back. That's something we've seen the Kings do. And sometimes even when it's not Valanciunas, like we've seen them do this with Lyles, when a 5-man will pick and pop and the Kings help defender from the corner will actually go out and contest the 3-point shot. So they were doing that to try to take away, to try to get some sort of contest on these Brook Lopez threes. Zach LaVine hit a couple of really tough shots. The Kings offense was rolling. LaVine and DeMar were just targeting Ryan Rollins. He could not defend either of them. And Keon was still playing well. Like, he had a nice drive and kick to the corner for 3. But Taurean Prince had a really good third quarter. He had a really good just game because most role players for the Bucks did not have a good first quarter and really didn't show up until late. And they started making some shots in the fourth quarter. But Taurean Prince was really the guy that was picking up the slack. And when the Kings would double Giannis, throw numbers at him, if it was Taurean Prince getting left open, that's when they were getting punished. And he's a guy who, I think he's like second in 3-point percentage this season, 44%. And yes, I was a massive advocate for the Kings signing Taurean Prince. What was that, 2 off seasons ago? Also, why is it the Lakers that always get the guys that I want? Because it was the Lakers that signed Taurean Prince 2 seasons ago and then also got Dorian Finney-Smith, who was my top trade target this season. It's always the Lakers getting my top guys. But anyways, you had Valanciunas, like I mentioned earlier, trying to do a behind the back pass. To be fair to him, he has successfully completed one of those as a King before that resulted in a 3. But what are you doing when you got Giannis on you and Giannis just picks it off and goes the other way? I like the ball movement from the Kings offensively, though. There was one play in particular where the ball was moving and Trey Lyles had a really nice drive. And Keon Ellis moved so well off the ball, went straight to the free throw line. Lyles found him on the baseline drive, and Keon just rises up for that nice mid-range shot. That possession where the ball's moving and it ends up with a Lyles drive and Keon just finding that soft spot, it just felt so good. And DeMar was drawing a bunch of fouls, but the Bucks, they just kept coming. Giannis scoring every possession. Brook Lopez hit a 3, then Giannis hit a midi. The lead was down to 3. Then there was a possession where the Kings played good defense on Giannis and had a good closeout to Kyle Kuzma, but it was one of those moments where you have to give up something. So they gave up a 3-point look to Kuzma and they tried to close out. And I think the Kings did that well where they have to give up some kind of open threes. And I thought they did a good job of trying to scramble out and get some sort of contest on these threes, but he hit it. That tied the game. Or no, I think then the next Giannis take to the rim actually tied the game. And so I thought the game might start to get away from the Kings, but they responded. Keegan had a great defensive play where he took one in the chest from Giannis and, it didn't get called for a charge, but he ended up stopping Giannis, and then he came down the other way, hit a 3. Next possession, Keegan takes another 3 but misses. Devin Carter gets the rebound. Keegan misses another 3. But Lyles is there for a rebound and a putback. Then Levine hit a step back three to go back up 6. So the response from the Kings was very good after the Bucks tied the game. Devin Carter had a nice drive after LaRavia stopped KPJ at the rim. It was a little out of control from Devin, but he drew the foul. He got there. Still missed a free throw. He's really got to work on this free throw shooting. It's bad. But I do like when he's aggressive, even if it was a little out of control there. And the Kings ended the quarter up 3. Giannis had 22 points, 8 rebounds on 9 for 11 from the field, 4 for 5 from the free throw line. In that quarter alone, an insane quarter from Giannis. And he got the Bucks back into it, but the Kings still had a lead. And Giannis would go on to sit the first 6 minutes of the fourth quarter. That's when the Kings had this game, right? They could have had this game, and they didn't. DeMar started off the fourth quarter well offensively, hitting a couple of buckets. But it felt like the Kings defense, maybe because they didn't have something to focus on. They didn't have the assignment of, we are going to guard Giannis. This is the game plan. Like when he's out of the game, maybe you don't have that strict game plan of how you're going to play defense. And that maybe makes guys relax a little, not fly around as much, or not be prepared to fly around as much defensively. And so the Bucks just got it going, and it didn't feel like the Kings were as active or physical defensively as they were when they had Giannis in the game, and they were able to kind of focus on defending Giannis. And so Kevin Porter Jr., man, I hate that dude for off the court reasons, but also that he kills the Kings. That just, makes it worse. He was responding, and the Kings defense was just allowing too many open looks, both at the rim and from deep. The Bucks defense started to pick it up and swarm a little, forced a Keon turnover, and Kevin Porter Jr. got a switch, Valanciunas on him, stepped back for 3, and Bucks take a 3-point lead, all with Giannis out of the game. LaRavia did respond to tie, but that was a bailout 3. Great shot, but the Kings offense just wasn't fast enough. It didn't have the same ball movement that we saw from, the start of the second quarter when LaRavia was in there and Keon was in there, and those guys were doing the attacking and they were attacking closeouts. We didn't see that same type of fast-paced ball movement offense, and the defense just wasn't connected enough. So it was a super disappointing 6 minutes. Levine lost his shoe, which resulted in a turnover. And when Giannis came back into the game, I believe the Kings were down 4. They didn't go away, though. They didn't just lie down in defeat. Now that Giannis was back in the game, DeMar gets an and one. But then the next possession, I think it was, Keegan does a great job of hounding Giannis full court, forces him to burn a bunch of time and then give up the ball and go off ball. That was a great job. But then with Giannis off the ball, not even involved in the play, the Bucks get easy penetration that felt like it could have been defended much better by honestly both Levine and LaRavia, and the Bucks are able to hit an open corner 3 again without Giannis being involved in the play. And so it's those moments that are just killer when you're going like the whole fourth quarter where Giannis isn't even doing much and you're still allowing the Bucks offense to thrive. It really didn't hurt to allow 37 points in the third because it was just all Giannis doing it. But when Giannis is out of the game, it just kills me. Lyles did respond with a big corner 3, but man, did he struggle after going nuclear against the Bulls from 3. He was back to how he's been this season, 1 for 7 from 3. And it sucks because he's been playing that small ball 5. And if he was able to shoot like he was in past seasons playing the small ball 5, those lineups offensively would be so dangerous from the Kings, but he hasn't been able to. He hit one big one in the fourth there, but then he went on to like airball a corner 3 and miss badly late again. And so teams have really just been able to leave him, which sucks because he's done so many other good things, but it's just that 3-point shot that's abandoned him here. Gary Trent Jr. hit a 3, so the role players started to hit some shots for the Bucks. And I thought there were 2 possessions in a row. Like DeMar, he had been scoring, and then he missed a shot settling for a mid-ranger. And so it was kind of that moment where my thought process is, okay, you've missed one now. If you don't have a massive mismatch, like let's go to something else. But he, more possession of a turnaround mini. And then the next possession, LaVine gets the ball and he was able to attack the rim, but then he bailed out of it. He didn't go up at the rim and he settled for a turnaround in the post. So there were just two possessions there where it felt like the Kings settled for shots. They were down two. They got the stops necessary and they settled for some shots. The possession after those two, DeMar did drive the ball and then the ball was moving. LaRavia drove, found Keegan for three. That's what we needed to see more of the entire fourth quarter, but Keegan missed the three. It was a better possession. We just needed some more of those. I think there's just a balance that you have to find because DeRozan can be so good and he hit some really nice shots at the start of the fourth quarter. Then we saw some nice plays where LaVine and DeMar were involved in some screen action with each other, and I always like that. What I don't like is when DeMar starts from the three-point line, takes a few dribbles in, and turns around from the deep mid-range on a possession, and that's all that happens. What we saw the Kings do a lot earlier in the season was getting DeMar off the ball and then getting him deeper into the post for better looks, closer to the basket. And we also saw a lot of moments where, like Keon Ellis, he wasn't in the game ending here, but Keon Ellis would screen for DeMar up top. And so I want to see more of that. We saw a little bit of that pairing between DeMar and LaVine, but not enough for my liking. Like we could see more of LaVine setting a screen for DeMar. And so I do think isolations and post-ups can work. I just think there's a better way to go about it than what the Kings have been doing recently in the clutch. And then an unfortunate play where Keegan blocks Giannis and the ball goes right to Gary Trent Jr. He knocks down another three. Kings go down 5. Lyles misses badly from 3 on the next possession. Then Kings get the stop. LaVine pushes the other way, gets to the free throw line and misses both free throws. So a tough loss to take where felt like the Kings put themselves in a position to win this game and then just weren't able to execute in the fourth quarter on either end, really. But the end that does bother me more is the defensive end at the start of the quarter. Because when Malik Monk and Domantas Sabonis are out, you can expect some struggles offensively, especially in the fourth quarter. And so it is the defensive side of the ball where they needed to be better. Going through some of the stat lines here, DeMar led the team in scoring with 22 points, 8 for 18 from the field, 0 for 4 from 3. It was a rough one from 3 for everyone not named Keon Ellis, pretty much. Keon, 37 minutes, 20 points, 6 assists, 9 rebounds. Did have the 3 turnovers because he was handling the ball and trying to make things happen more offensively. But, I'll kind of take those turnovers if he's being that aggressive offensively off the dribble and making things happen. LaVine had 16 on 7 for 17 from the field. Missed some ones at the basket that felt like they just dropped out. Thought his shot attempts were, for the most part, solid. Because that's been the main criticism for him. It's like he's not attempting enough shots. And I don't think that was the problem this game. He just missed some shots that maybe he normally makes. But, again, I want him taking 17 shots a game at least. And we'll take games where he goes 7 for 17. That's just going to happen. But he needs to be taking that many shots consistently. Valanciunas was great. 8 for 11 from the field. For 18 points, 7 rebounds. Kings ended with Lyles, but that was kind of expected for defensive purposes. We've been seeing them do that a lot, but Valanciunas actually was able to play more in this game than I thought he would because he was actually able to defend the pick and roll between Giannis and Brook Lopez quite a bit. There was one moment where he got absolutely dusted by a spin move for an and one. I mean, I don't think Giannis was aggressive enough in the first half attacking Valanciunas, but to credit Valanciunas, he stayed in front. And then the last guy, Keegan, guarding Giannis for most of the night, did a solid job, but had 13, 9 rebounds, 2 blocks. Off the bench, Jake LaRavia, 28 minutes, 11 points. And this dude is just way more exciting than I could have ever guessed. he's always doing new things, and they don't always work out, but boy, are they fun to watch. Lyles had a rough one, 3 for 12 from the field, 1 for 7 from three, but had the 5 offensive rebounds, 7 points, 3 assists. Fultz had 8 minutes. I actually thought he was solid in his 8 minutes. Didn't take a shot attempt, didn't score, but had an offensive rebound, had an assist. I just thought he put in a solid 8 minutes. I don't think I mentioned him at all in the recap, but with the Kings having, Malik Monk out, needing a guy to step in to eat some minutes, thought he did a solid job. Devin Carter had a quieter game in this one than the past two, but obviously didn't expect him to keep that up. He had 1 point on a free throw for 3 rebounds, 2 steals. Still thought it was a solid game for him. He continues to contribute and do solid things on the basketball court. Obviously the effort, the rebounding, the steals, the defense. And so just that next step is, can he knock down his threes where he went 0 for 2 this game? Can he knock down his free throws? Because he has shown the ability to drive the ball a little bit and get to the free throw line. So now it's just, can he knock down those shots? And I will say, the Kings' young players, I'm a lot more excited about the young players on this team now than I was a year ago today. Now, I'm not as excited about the core of this team going forward now as I was, a year ago today, which kind of sucks, but I am excited about the young players. Isaac Jones got converted from his two-way to a 2-year contract. And it was only a matter of time because the Kings have been signing 10 days with Scal, with Terry Taylor, but they were going to need a permanent 14th roster spot to be filled. And so, I thought it was pretty obvious it was going to be Isaac Jones. They were waiting until his games on 2-way contracts ran out, which they did. And so they, counts less against the salary cap when they do it this late, or they don't have to pay as much, whatever contractual reasons they had, they waited. But now it's done. So he got the full roster spot. And the front office of the Kings, they have many blind spots, I think, that we've seen. But one of the things that we absolutely have to praise them on is their ability to find undrafted players. They've been finding these undrafted players in Keon Ellis, in Isaac Jones, in Isaiah Crawford, who I am super high on. And so these are the guys I'm talking about when I'm saying that I'm more excited about the young players now than I was before. And the Kings absolutely have a type when it comes to these young players, from Keegan Murray to Devin Carter to Keon Ellis and Isaiah Crawford and Isaac Jones, and even Davion Mitchell and Colby Jones, who obviously didn't work out on the team, but they have a type. They want these defensive guys. Maybe the Keegan case is a little bit different because he's a 4th pick, so it's not quite the same, but they have a type, and it really works for the later picks, I feel like. The lottery picks have been hit or miss, but they've done such a good job of finding these undrafted guys. And even a guy like Jake LaRavia, who I hope can be part of the young players, but I don't know. The contract situation is weird in the offseason. Hopefully they can get something done. But I think when you look at the young players in Keegan Murray, Keon Ellis, hopefully Jake LaRavia, Devin Carter, now you had Isaac Jones on a full NBA contract. And like I said, I really like Isaiah Crawford as well. Is there a star player in that? Maybe not, but they seem like a lot of possible rotational guys in there. And so those are, like, a guy like Isaac Jones getting a contract just makes me so happy. Like those are the things that make me really happy as a Kings fan, as an NBA fan, because I remember one of the things I said after Summer League watching Isaac Jones was I said I didn't think he would really become an NBA player for a couple of reasons, just because one is age, but also his jump shot was a big one. And then also he didn't look super impressive defensively for the physical tools that he had. And so I remember saying, I'm rooting for this guy because I love his game, but just, it seems really unlikely that he'll ever actually make it. And I'm so happy to be wrong so quickly, because I did love his game in Summer League. And this season, in the NBA minutes that he's gotten, he's really impressed. In the G League, he's dominated. And the thing that has surprised me is he's really been able to earn his contract through some just really good offensive play. The way that he's been able to fit into an NBA offense despite not having a super reliable three-point shot, and he's still developing that. He's shown some ability to hit the corner three, but it's not like his defense has even popped. He has the tools, he has the length, he has the athleticism, the rebounding ability. I think he has the potential to be a much better defender than he is right now. And I think you can see he has improved defensively already. I think he's absolutely improved defensively, but his offensive finishing ability has been the most impressive part of his game. And so I'm super happy that he's been able to get an NBA contract here. And these types of fines and these types of contracts are super important. This type of development to get these rotational guys like this. If you can develop Keon Ellis and Isaac Jones and Isaiah Crawford all into rotational players, that is a massive win. And I do think Isaiah Crawford is up next because I talked about it a lot during the recap of this game. You need 3-and-D guys, but who can also do a little bit more. And I think that's what he's been showing in the G League. He's been able to knock down the three at a very high clip. He's been able to defend, steals, blocks. He's got the strength, but he's also been able to attack closeouts, get to his mid-range shots. Lately, he's just been dominating offensively in the G League. So that's another guy I am very excited about. And so I just wanted to touch on those things because of the news of Isaac Jones getting converted. Obviously, I'll talk a lot more about these guys in the offseason because this year isn't their year necessarily for a lot of the young guys. They're about the future. And I think for the future, the Kings have to lean into these guys if they want to be successful, just looking at the state of the current roster and the contracts and all that. So I'm just very happy that we are seeing some success from our young players, and two-way contracts are always guys that I'm rooting for. But now we have to focus on the next game, the Boston Celtics, and then a back-to-back against the Oklahoma City Thunder. It's always so hard to preview any game in the NBA, especially in March. I have no clue who's going to play in this game. Sabonis won't, that's for sure. Will Malik Monk? Will Porzingis, Holiday, Tatum, Brown? No idea. It looks like from the ESPN injury report, Jaylen Brown won't, but that could change. I have no idea. But the Kings were able to pull out a win in Boston, one of their biggest wins of the season, where they were without De'Aaron Fox. And that was, I think, pretty much the coming out party of Devin Carter very early in his career, right? Where he went 3 for 5 from three. I remember he hit those 2 threes where at the start of the fourth quarter where they were having Kristaps Porzingis defend him because they wanted to make Devin Carter prove it from the outside, which makes sense on their end, but like he proved it. He proved them wrong. But the other thing that happened in that game was Sabonis getting 23 points and 28 rebounds, so we will be without that. But over the past couple of games, I think what we've seen from the Kings is their inability to guard guys that aren't star players. Like what I mean by that, the Bulls, when it's just a bunch of these guys coming at you where there's no single star player, and obviously like Kobe White is the guy, but there is no like real main guy to focus on. And then when Giannis is out of the game for the Bucks, you have KPJ starting to go off. And so to me, when I think about the Celtics, now I think about Peyton Pritchard as that next guy, where the Kings just have to be able to key in on these other guys and not let them get going. And so the Kings just need to be able to have that consistent defensive intensity no matter who is playing, no matter who the Celtics decide to sit out in this game. It doesn't matter whatever the defensive game plan is or whether you don't really have one because there is no Tatum or Porzingis or Jaylen Brown to key in on, and you're just kind of playing a little more straightforward defense. No matter what, you have to keep that same focus and connectivity. So anyways, that is it for this episode of the Roll Report. I will be back on Monday to recap that game against the Celtics. So I'll see you guys then. Peace.